Hey everyone, welcome to Youth Bombs. I'm Craig.
I'm Carson.
And I'm Dominic.
And we're the voice of young conservatives in Alachua County. Birthright citizenship has been a huge topic of late, with President Trump signing an executive order to disband that notion. However, a judge has overruled him. Carson, you support the idea of birthright citizenship. What can you tell us about your position and why?
Well, I want to start by saying I'm not really sure how I feel about the idea of birthright citizenship generally. I really think that's kind of irrelevant. I mean, we can all talk about how we feel about it, but it's enshrined in a constitutional amendment. And so the issue is you don't get to just, as the executive, overturn a constitutional amendment. That requires adding a new amendment. So you would need 3/4 of the state legislatures and 2/3 of the Congress. Now, frankly, it's very clear in the Constitution. If you are born here and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, so that would eliminate, foreign diplomats, for instance, but if you are subject to the jurisdiction thereof here, then you are a citizen. I think it's pretty clear. If you're going to say that illegal immigrants are not subject to the jurisdiction thereof, or their children aren't, you're saying that the law doesn't apply to them, which I think is absurd.
And I see where you're coming from there. The thing that I would look at, two things. One is the original intent, which was to give freedmen citizenship. So say, for instance, they weren't thinking of someone can just come here and do birth tourism, rather that the slaves who were freed are now citizens. And then the second thing would be the fact that the jurisdiction thereof, that refers to loyalty, what loyalty they have to which nation. So while an illegal immigrant, yes, they have to follow the nation's laws, that doesn't mean that their allegiance, their citizenship is to America. And I think that's where the difference is. It's not necessarily saying that everyone under the sun who, if you're in the U.S., then that's what it's talking about. It seems as though the intent is for people owing their allegiance to the United States. Otherwise, we could have, say, an invading army who they give birth in the United States and their children are U.S. citizens. That wouldn't apply.
Well, I think like a foreign diplomat's child, an invading army wouldn't be subject to the jurisdiction thereof of the United States. I think it's pretty clear that, if you're invading, you're obviously going against the law of the United States. So I think that would be another instance where it wouldn't make sense. And I will say, you can certainly look at the initial context, but the entire point was that you couldn't, these freedmen, they couldn't have citizenship just based on their parents having citizenship. I mean, that'd be a grandfather clause 2.0. They would need a way to get citizenship other than just by, inheriting it. So I think it still makes sense that it would, in this same context, give citizenship to illegal immigrants' kids who are born here.
Okay. Dominic, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I am opposed to the idea of birthright citizenship because when considering this issue, we have to think of what the intended purpose of the amendment was. Like you said, was to allow freed slaves to become U.S. citizens. But when they first ratified the amendment, they had no idea what issues we would be facing today with our border crisis at the southern border. And I just don't think that it makes logical sense if illegal immigrant parents come to the United States and give birth. I don't think that the child should have the right to citizenship because the parents shouldn't have been here in the first place. They are not rightfully here. They are not here legally. They violated our country's laws by coming here. And also, I feel like it just creates even more complications for the family because when the parents are going to be deported for being illegal immigrants, it's not like the child can just stay here and be a citizen. They're going to be separated from their family. So I think that the best option is to deport both the parents and the child and send them back to their country of origin.
Okay. And before we move on to the next point, which would be whether or not we feel birthright citizenship should be the law of the land, regardless of its constitutionality. Carson, I want to get you for the rebuttal.
Yeah, I would just say overall, and we can go back and forth on the original intention. It's such a vague phrase, and but nowhere in the Constitution does it say these amendments should be, or the entire Constitution should be interpreted in the context in which it was originally written. I mean, it's words on a document that tell us how to run this country. So we don't need to go by the standards in which it was originally written. It doesn't. I mean, that's not even what the purpose is. I don't think. I think the originalist argument is far inferior to a textualist argument. I mean, what is written on the paper is far more important than the original context.
Okay. Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. I think it's a multifaceted approach in terms of looking at the original intent and the language itself. But in regards to actually having it as a policy, regardless of whether it's constitutional or not, where do you stand on that?
I mean, I think it's really complicated. I'm probably opposed just because I think it's a bad incentive structure, but I would just much rather it be far easier to come into this country generally. If we had a far easier system in place where you didn't have to spend upwards of $10,000 and 5 years of paperwork and all of this, these different processes to come to this country, you wouldn't have all of these people who are coming here illegally. They would just come here through the legal process. Most people want to come here through the legal process, and then the ones who aren't coming through the legal process can be deported. I mean, I don't see a problem with that once we have a system in place that is, more streamlined. I mean, you should see the document. It's like 20 pages long of just yeses and nos, benchmarks you have to make, payments you have to make, and that kind of thing. So,
Okay. Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. And I think there could, in my view, be room to streamline the process while also limiting the amount of legal immigration into the country. That way, you can both have a process that is straightforward while also limiting the amount of immigration into the United States, which is something where we would differ on. But I think that the overly bureaucratic nature of it can complicate things, can add to government spending unnecessarily, and a more straightforward process with a cap could be the most efficient way to handle this. But in regards to birthright citizenship itself, I am of the belief that if you walk across the border and you have a child that should not give you or the child's citizenship, it's not right because you have no allegiance to the nation, you have no connection to the nation, there is nothing that ties you to America. I think at least one relative in the immediate family should have allegiance to the United States. But Dominic, how do you feel?
Yeah, well, I think having this amendment in place is actually hurting American citizens, and it definitely needs to be revised and removed from the Constitution, because over the last 4 years with Biden's leadership and lack of enforcement of immigration policy, we have had millions of immigrants come in at numbers that we do not have the capacity to handle, and we've just had so many problems from, crime and drugs coming into the country, and using taxpayer money to support these immigrants in sanctuary cities, and it just needs to stop. And I think that being able to come here and having a child that can rightfully be a citizen is incentivizing more immigrants to come here, and we just need to completely stop it, remove it from the Constitution, and focus on putting the needs of American citizens first.
Okay. And Carson, would you argue that, say, higher immigration levels benefit the American people, and why?
Yes, I would make that argument. I think it's very clear if you look at the employment numbers, for instance, of different jobs, especially our agricultural and construction economies, which are the two biggest sectors in which illegal immigrants work. And it's very clear there are many job openings. I mean, many more than are currently filled. And American citizens are not filling these jobs. I mean, just the fact that there are so many job openings and they are not being filled goes to show that Americans are not taking these jobs. They don't want these jobs. They want jobs that are, typically, and I'm not meaning to be elitist here, but generally American citizens, especially college-educated ones, want jobs that are of a higher stature. A lot of people are going for STEM jobs. And so just this idea that American citizens are going for agricultural and construction jobs and they're just not getting them, they're getting sent to illegal immigrants, I think it's absurd. These jobs are offered to American citizens and they are declined. Even as a condition for legal immigrants to come here on work visas, you need to show that American citizens are applying for these jobs and they are not taking them. And there are still so many different immigrants who come here legally, who come here on work visas and stay here for 3/4 of the year and work these agricultural jobs. So,
Interesting. Okay. And in regards to that, say, I think with illegal immigration, part of the issue is that we don't have universal e-verify. We have state governments giving benefits to illegal immigrants regardless of citizenship, and you would cut that down if we didn't have that being the case. But then also it would encourage future individuals to want to do it through the legal process and be able to become a legal worker in the United States so long as they are not displacing American labor. But does Birthright, would you say, ignore having an immigration process in the first place?
I mean, yeah, I understand the general, like, outside of the constitutionality of it, the general reasoning behind not wanting birthright citizenship. I understand the incentive structure it creates. It's just a question of what do we do with these people who are already here, especially the ones who have been here for upwards of a decade now, and is the best solution, especially for our economy, to just remove them?
I'm going to say yes on that, and you know why. As we've been over in the show in previous episodes in regards to economics and crime. But Dominic, I want to get you with the closing thought.
Well, I think there's a different solution to the issue of many Americans not wanting to take these jobs, and this ties back to an issue that has been hurting our country for decades, which is, of course, social welfare. We just, we can't have the government handing people checks when they're not willing to work, and we just really need to start rolling back those social safety nets and make Americans start going back to work. And we saw a lot of that a lot of those problems following COVID with the stimulus checks. As the economy began to reopen, people were receiving money from the government, which was de-incentivizing them from going to work. So if we say, okay, you are not going to get the government support anymore, you need to work to sustain yourself, then I feel like Americans would be more willing to take those jobs, and we wouldn't be needing illegal immigrants to take them.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's a multifaceted approach. And you also have, say, in Massachusetts, for instance, where I'm from, the fact that if you are an illegal immigrant, you can be getting state benefits, and such government websites even encourage you not to fill out federal forms for, say, housing because legal status is required. But that being said, thanks everyone so much for watching. We really appreciate it. We upload 3 times a week. If you'd like to reach out to us, feel free at youthbombs@electoralrepublicans.com. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much.